ghostly mark. Cobwebs twine and shadows dance in this twilight somber trance. Candles flicker, weary wicks, ancient echoes, time's cruel tricks. Marble figures, frozen pose, amidst the silence sorrow grows. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room. Chandeliers in crystal tears reflect forgotten yesteryears, softly chanting distant cries. Through the arches sorrow sighs. Gargoyles watch with stony gaze, guardians of endless maze. Pipe organ's breath begins to rise, filling air with mournful ties. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room.
Good afternoon, chat. If everything's going correctly, then this is Lady Red of the Black Pants Legion, and we're going to do some writing nonsense today. How is everybody? You can see Grimos, Ramshackle, Wilf, Night Owl, most of the usual crew. It's lovely to see you. I'm kind of quiet, okay, I will see what I can do about that. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm also going to drag Aiden in here. Hi, Aiden, how are you doing?
Hi, please no drag.
Yes, drag. The puppies
Also-
have things to say. How's the volume? Any better? Woof. Yes, much woof. There is going to be much woof today.
As
A
there
bit
should
better?
be.
Okay, that means I need to tinker with a few more things. I keep about 4 world and 9 mirrors staring back at me. Very important, Ramshackle. You've got to have extra stuff in your head. Pets have been redeemed. We will administer pets as soon as we can. Right, let me go and tinker with my options, because I am going to need to adjust my mic over here, I suspect. So,
Excuse me.
Let me tinker. It's going to be that direction, I think. And with any luck, that might improve matters. We will see. I am going to be beggaring your indulgence quite a bit through this stream chat, because we've got some unusual things to talk about today. We've got the puppies. Today is Virgil's very last day with us. So it's been a bit of a sad one. We're very excited for him, very excited for where he's going to next. He is going to just the best family. He had his final shots that he needs to have with us this morning and was a very brave boy. But he will be going on to his new home tomorrow in the morning, and we are going to miss him terribly. If you're not sure which one he is, he's the one currently sitting in the doorway. A vigil for Virgil. We just need to send him plenty of well wishes as we send him on his way. Wacker, you'll have to let me know how the audio's doing and whether I adjusted things in the correct direction or not. He is a good lad. He has been the best little lad. He is not too over the top. He's not too understated. He's curious. He loves his cuddles. He loves his siblings. So he really couldn't be in any better position to be heading on to everything he'll do next. I could be louder. All right, let me wiggle the buttons in another direction and we'll see what happens. Is that any better? Soft but echoing. The echoing will be coming, unfortunately, from Aiden.
That's me.
That will be something that will be
Adjusting.
fixed towards the end of the year because we will be back in our own home and have more options. So the echo will go away with time, and Aiden, I'm sure, will help to manage it in the meantime. He's motivated, but only just. Yes, not too motivated. He doesn't have a brother to have a rivalry with, which is probably helping. Right, that's just about the last of my tea finished. So I did say I was going to be begging your indulgence today, chat, because there is something really important I'd like to talk about, and I don't want this to be a depressing stream. We've got a lot of wonderful things to talk about, but some of them I might get a bit tearful over because Virgil's going to be going to his new home, but there's something even more important I want to talk about today, and it's the reason why I want to talk about TTRPGs. Some of you will already know, but probably quite a lot of you don't. But this time last week, very unfortunately, a member of the auxiliary passed away. And this member of the auxiliary was not only a wonderful beanling and orcshole among orcsholes, but he was also a personal friend to Aiden and myself, and his passing was very unexpected. So it came as quite shocking news on Saturday morning, and for everybody who loved him, especially his wife, it's obviously been a bit of a week, quite a lot going on, and Benny, who is the gentleman we're talking about, who appeared in the Orcs as the Hippie Mancer, was a wonderful personality, and I have, as does Aiden, a plethora of TTRPG stories that he was a crucial part of, and I'd really like to talk about memory building today, why interactive storytelling is such a wonderful gift for the good times in life as well as for the bad times in life, for the memories and important things you build, and the worth that goes forwards into the world when your creativity is appreciated by other people. So I'm going to talk a bit this week about TTRPGs with Aiden. We're definitely going to talk about Benny. There's some things I'd like to do in Shoal with regards to Benny as well. I think it would be appropriate, and I do have the permission from his wife, for us to potentially name our first Leviathan that we're going to detail after Benny. And I know which one it is that I think we should do that for. And I'm hoping that we'll have a bit of fun doing it, because if there was one thing that Benny absolutely was, it was the life and soul of the party. And being part of something that goes on to be fun and interesting for people going forward, I think is the perfect way to talk about him. So that's the indulgence I'm asking for. That's what we're here for this week. And having you guys with us to do that will be a wonderful, wonderful gift. I'm going to finish the last of my tea, and then we'll jump into talking about TTRPGs.
Indeed.
Do you remember what your first TTRPG you ever played was, Aiden?
I do. And he was a part of it, is where would be a good place to spring off, especially since the puppies have just scarpered off, so puppy cam has run blank for a moment.
Puppy Cam is currently wonderfully showing Pip's butt, so by all means,
Oh.
tell us about your first TTRPG.
So, I cut my teeth on D&D 3.5. it was for the longest time when I was in high school, middle school, I had been poring over a set of the second ed AD&D books that I had inherited from somebody, but I didn't actually get to play or run a game until college, and it was 3.5 edition, and we had us a great time. And we had a party of players that were an interesting cast. I know I've mentioned at one point the party member with Tourette's who had made his war mage that also had Tourette's, which was everybody thought it was a great idea at the time.
Was Benny the first one who suggested it? Because that would not surprise me.
No, I was the one who suggested it. He was the one who jumped on the idea and was like, this needs to happen. So yeah, I warned them that the war mage would have Tourette's, meaning a chance for miscasting, and they're like, no, that sounds funny. Until they're leaving town and he accidentally exploded in fire in the middle of the party with nobody else for the spell to target around them, at which point everybody realized they had made a critical mistake. The thing, before we even get to the response that came about from that. Oh, Pip, don't step on your boy, you doofus.
Pip continues to have zero coordination. He is a himbo.
He literally just stepped on the boy. That's what happened there. He was backing up and just backed up onto his puppy.
Oh, they're fine. This is not the first time Pip has stepped on one of them, and they will quite happily tell him off.
So, one of the quirks about the game that I was running was that I had it in my head that I didn't want the party to just be able to go in, loot everything, throw it in a bag of holding, and then wander off. I wanted to actually care about encumbrance rules, and a large part of that is because when Benny first handed me his character sheet, I looked at it, I'm like, your item list takes a full page of paper. A full page. I'm like, what are you doing with all of this shit? Like, 10-foot poles. Multiple 10-foot poles. In hindsight, that was the beginning, as far as I'm aware, of a long-standing thing with him, which was 10-foot poles. He always had to have them. He loved them. He found uses for them,
Yes,
even when they shouldn't have been
use
useful.
them judiciously.
I'm like, no, why do you need a 10-foot pole? You're an adventurer. You don't need to bring a pole with. What are you going to use it for? And so I got very irate and started limiting certain things and affecting the cosmology of the setting about planar travel to justify you can't have a bag of holding, Benny. You can't have a bag of holding. Samurai, you're not wrong. And he tried that one too. He tried that one too. So, at the end of the day, his idea for a roguish adventure with every mundane item under the sun was vetoed. So he makes Father Furin Sten, Dwarven Cleric of Moradin.
My goodness, this character has persisted in stories.
Because he persisted when
Yes.
One session in, Benny decided he didn't want to play the character anymore. He didn't want to do it. Now,
I
okay,
think it's
fair
a
enough.
universal rule of TTRPGs that the dice gods, if they ever hear you say, I don't want to play this character anymore, I'm just going to get them killed off and then I'll play something else, will conspire to make sure that this character now cannot die. They become immortal.
Indeed, Polyhedrus, blessed be his many sides, chooses those who live and those who do not, and he has a really fucked up sense of humor. So, Father Sten was a dwarven cleric, and in 3.5, that means that he was armored like a battleship, because you could do that. And it became Benny's job as the armored beyond all sense and reason to preserve the party by throwing himself on the metaphorical grenade whenever the war mage started twitching. So he performed the maneuver we dubbed the Flying Jesus, which is, airborne insertion of armored dwarf, all limbs splayed out, so as to, again, throw himself on the hand grenade so the rest of the party might live. Because this character just refused to die. He fought like a berserker, a kamikaze, and he then proceeded to live. Regardless of whatever happened, he somehow survived and became one of the most long-standing characters, to the point where he actually got the elf to convert and take a level as the elven paladin of the god of dwarves. That was an experience. He had a crisis of faith. We set up a scenario that was an impossible to win scenario unless he beseeched Moradin for aid. When he finally caved in and did so, the Deus Ex Machina happened, but all very much in a deliberate fashion rather than, doing Deus Ex Machina to cheapen out a scenario. It was the point of the scenario which made it work. We had some good times with that character. And he became kind of a mainstay in games that we ran throughout the rest of our time in college. That was the first game I ever ran. I know that one of the best games, in fact, the two best games I ever got to participate in, he was a member of. First was a Kingmaker game when we migrated to Pathfinder, where he played the advisor to King Gavin von Garnor, reining in the king's lawful omnicidal tendencies with a bit of sound reason and shenanigans. And then there was Savo, a VTM chronicle that Lady Red ran, and I'm gonna let her tell this one, especially since I need to get Pip to stop yelling.
Pip has them bigger woos today. One of the nice things about Pip's woos when he really starts going is he does this little hop with his front paws that's just adorable.
It's not just his front paws. Whenever he does the big awoos, it's his full body. His butt puffs out, his little paws come up, his stomach sucks in. Like, he awoos with every fiber of his being.
Well, while Aiden goes and sorts the dogs out, PupCam will be going off for a few moments while Aiden goes in to avoid some face reveals, and it will be back up in a minute. So, I started playing TTRPGs when I was quite young with AD&D 2nd edition, AD&D revised, whatever you want to call it, and kind of grew from there. But high fantasy isn't really my thing. Nothing against it, it's just not my personal favourite. And of course, I found my way into World of Darkness instead, which is very much up my alley, especially Vampire the Masquerade, and I ran 2nd ed revised of that. I'm very much, as regulars to this stream know, I'm very much a narrative-driven person. I like stories that have those narrative moments, character arcs, long campaigns with effects that affect the world and the characters as they do things. I'm not somebody who's there for rules lawyering, min-maxing, and all that fun stuff, which is not to say that's a bad thing. There is definitely something to be said for rolling into a game with a statistically perfect character and defeating things that you shouldn't be able to in novel ways by using the rules. That's completely fine, but it's not what I go to TTRPGs for. I love the storytelling element, and Vampire the Masquerade, and just World of Darkness in general, is very strong on its narrative focus, or at least it was when it was classic World of Darkness. I really didn't take to New World of Darkness at all. I found Vampire the Requiem to be a massive letdown then, and we don't talk about that. But I did love Vampire the Masquerade. I loved that sort of gritty feel it had to it. I was just the right age for everything coming out. So, I was into The Crow, The Conjuring, all that sort of stuff that was going on. My goth phase has never fully gone away. The comics and stuff that I were reading were these very sort of gritty affairs as well. So Vampire the Masquerade was my thing. And when I first came over to visit Aiden, because I have a nice, wonderful group of online friends who are sort of my core chosen family, and Aiden was the last of them that I went to visit in person. Because my rules back then, as a young redling trying to be sensible on the internet, was I needed to know people for at least 3 years and have seen them on webcam Oh, lovely. That's really kind. Somebody's left us a collection of balls on the fence as presents for the dogs. That's adorable. You should put pup cam on and drop one into the puppy enclosure. So Iden was the last of the group that I went to see, and you know, I'd made sure he was who he said he was, and he was in college at the time, staying in an apartment, and his roommate was Benny. So I got to meet Iden and Will and some other people. Saris, you don't need to yell at your boy, thank you. We might need a ball for Pip personally, because Saris is being a ball fiend as usual. If you could get PubCam stable, I wish you luck. So I went to stay at the apartment. It was where I met Iden and his group of friends, which of course included Benny, and I'd organised that I was going to run a VTM game while I was there. So this was going to be a game that got ran relatively hard and fast. I was there for, I think, 2 weeks, and we were going to do the entire chronicle within that time. So I made a information packet of everything everybody needed to know. I delivered that to them. They pre-built their characters so that once I got there, when we were ready to sit down and start playing, we could. And we had Iden playing Aventru, who was very much taking inspiration from Fight Club. His character was eternally exasperated with everything that was going on around him, especially as he was forced to be the group adult, even though he really didn't want to be and just wanted to punch people in the face. We had another guy called Jacob playing a Malkavian, and he was playing a fish Malkavian. For anybody who's not familiar with Vampire the Masquerade, Malkavians are the crazy clan, and they unfortunately got a reputation during the peak of Vampire's popularity for people doing the sort of lol random thing with Malkavians, and these are known as fish Malkavians. And when they're done poorly, which was 90% of the time, they're just annoying and derail a game. Jacob was not annoying and did not derail the game. He was... I mean, he derailed the game in appropriate ways. He was hilarious, and for all he was just off his rocker with this character, he added to everything that was going on and was just a joy to play with. We had William Desir, who you guys will sometimes see in chat, playing a gangrel who could have been a Bruja if you didn't know any better. And finally, we had Benny. And Benny had decided he wanted to play a Ravnos, which are the gypsy descended clan. They're all charlatans, tricksters, lots of illusion powers, and quite often a problem. I decided I was going to run this campaign in a city I'd made up that was on the eastern seaboard of the United States. So I'd made my own city so that everything could be where I wanted it. I knew what was where. I knew who all the characters were, what their interactions were, who was allied with who and who wasn't. And there were only 2 Ravnos in the entire city. Benny and his character's sire.
You can only ever get 2 Ravnos in a city before
you
problems
have
happen.
a crime spree. That's what you have. So he was playing one of only 2 Ravnos in the city, and as a result, he was pretty, sort of low placed in terms of political pull. This did not stop him from uprooting the entirety of the city structure by the time we were done. Benny's quirk he took with his Ravnos, because every clan has a sort of downside they have to deal with, and for the Ravnos it's that they have a compulsion that they are obliged to have to pay attention to. And his character was a compulsive liar. To the point where if you ever said, that was surprisingly honest for you, that was the greatest insult you could fire at this man.
Oh, he would get outraged.
He would get absolutely livid about it. He also defended his haven by having Tesla coils around the front of it, and nobody could stop him. This was despite my best efforts.
It should be noted that the honesty bit and outrage wasn't just the character. Now, Benny was not a compulsive liar as a person, but he liked to play the cheeky line of ever being loose with the truth, not in a malicious way, but in a playful trickster pranking kind of way.
Benny in real life was a Ravnos, and his compulsion was chronic shitposter.
Yeah.
That was Benny's personality, and he just brought so much fun to everything that he did. So we've set up this campaign, and we've got all these sort of serious moments that are going on, and I should have known. None of it was going to last. Not when you put it in front of a group of young lads who've had time to pre-plan. I can't even remember the specifics of how some of the things happened. What led up to the Sky Piranha? Was that the first chronicle or the second?
No, it was the first. It was the first. And Sky Piranha was its own interesting occurrence because we were on our way back from some kind of antics, and we just stumbled upon a couple shovelheads lurking around a church that was having late service, and they were gonna go in and do what shovelheads do. For those not in the
Eric,
loop,
this is that guy, and yeah, explain what a
Yes.
shovelhead is for the unknowing.
yeah, for those who don't know what a shovelhead is, the Sabbats, the quote-unquote bad guys for most games of Vampire the Masquerade, and they like to mass embrace people and then just leave them to run riot throughout the city in a confused, hungry state because they cause all kinds of problems for the player characters and the Camarilla that they belong to. And, it just makes a mess while they're doing their thing. And of course, they're called shovelheads because the usual routine by which they bring these people into the world of the undead is they make them dig their own graves, they kill them, bring them, feed them vampire blood to bring them back, whack them upside the head with a shovel, throw them in the grave, and bury them. The ones who manage to crawl out of their own grave after they're buried are the ones who become shovelheads, usually stark raving mad, entirely ravenously hungry, and pissed the hell off. These are what were waiting for these churchgoers when the party stumbled upon them, and we're like, oh shit, this is gonna be a mess if we don't do something about it. And the authorities, the vampire authorities we would call, are not gonna get here in time. Ah, crap. So we proceed to go in, roll up sleeves, and start throwing hands. And we were matched with the Op 4 roughly evenly. So you've got me playing the Ventru, who's basically the protag from Fight Club, throwing happy slaps. You've got the Malkavian, who is doing his own thing, but he's a lover, not a fighter. He's trying to keep himself from getting beat up too bad. We've got Leonid frickin' Pavlov, the gangrel that Wildesir played, who was a marksman from the Soviet-Afghan conflict, who is just going ham with a sidearm. And then you've got Benny playing Matt the Ravnos, who's like, I'm not a fighter either, but you know what I do have? Sky Piranha! Heed my call! And he literally, in the middle of the living room, just flings his hands up to the sky and cries to the heavens that line, while the rest of us just break out into fucking giggle fits.
So something that's worth noting with regards to me when I run a chronicle or a setting of any kind, I've already said I'm very narratively focused, and that's what I really like. So what I like to do is to reward good role-playing. And I reward good role-playing by, when it's time to grant an experience, if you played your character really well, if you did something that was particularly cunning or funny, that really added to the fun that we were all there to have, I'd give you some extra experience points. Benny took this to heart, which was kind of why this went just so ridiculous, but it was also just Benny's personality. So he throws his hands up and goes, Sky Piranha, heed my call. And what he's doing is he's using one of the skills the Ravnos have to use animal familiars, effectively. What's supposed to happen is that they can command up to a small number of animals of the appropriate type within their local area. And, so you're not exactly going to be stood in the middle of a city and demand that a pack of wolves turn up to eviscerate your foes. There's not going to be any wolves there, and you're just not going to have the ability to, make wolves appear somewhere that they're just not going to be. However, you can definitely make pigeons appear if you're in a urban environment. And when you impress the GM and make the entire table fall apart laughing because of the way you've decided to do this, you not only get the 6 pissed off pigeons that you've asked for, you get a full flock of 20 plus pigeons that you asked for. So we had a massive flock of very angry, disoriented pigeons that are not good at flying at night, incidentally, and a pigeon's fear response or confusion response to anything that happens to them is to poop. You can imagine where this went for the shovelheads. This was not how I envisioned this encounter concluding, but this was how this concluded.
Just
God.
the squawking, pooping swarm descended upon the guy, and the entire rest of the engagement stopped what we were doing. Like, everybody paused mid-punch to turn and watch as this guy gets Hitchcocked to death, and the rest of us are like, holy fuck! The remaining shovelheads ran. They're like, no, man, no, we don't want to die covered in pigeon shit like that. We're fucking out, dude. We're out.
This was an encounter that would come back to haunt me in the sequel chronicle that I ran when they decided that they were going to ruin the Toreador's outdoor concert party by repeating the trick only on the speakers. That also went terribly.
Oh my god, I had forgotten about that
Yes.
That one. Jesus.
Other wonderful things that Benny got up to during this chronicle was that the whole concept of this initial chronicle that I ran was kind of inspired by Dracula and a whole other load of things that I was interested in, as were the gents. And what I had was that a ship had arrived from Europe with an artifact on board, with all the usual, unnatural fog. People on the boat had died. They had to interview the boat captain. They were trying to figure out what was going on. I was building up to the release of Demon the Fallen. What had happened was an artifact that was a gateway for a demon to make its way into the world early had arrived in their city and was causing all these problems. And potentially it was going to wake an elder up, or potentially it was going to, the demon himself was going to be a problem. And they eventually tracked down that the reason this artifact had been brought to the city, the people behind this absolute idiocy, was some Tremere who made some really bad decisions. So they ended up heading over to the Chantry to deal with various things. And in the sequel chronicle, after the entire Chantry had been burned down, which was a story in and of itself.
They had it coming. I'm just gonna put it that way. The fuckers tried to do bad things to us and made us terrified of butterflies. Butterflies of all goddamn things.
Yes, they did. Well, we ended up with a scenario where there was a La Sombra in the basement of the burned out Chantry. And would you like to tell everybody what happened when you went to try and deal with the La Sombra in the basement?
Oh my god. Alright, so here's the thing about La Sombra. La Sombra are the ones that have all of the wobbly wobbly shadow manipulation powers. Yes, they instilled the Butterfly of Doubt. I see what you did there. I don't like it, but I at least appreciate it. The La Sombra have the wobbly shadowy powers, like they control shadows, they do harm to people with animated shadows, etc., etc. We're in the burnt out ruins of this building, and we all are trying to go up the set of stairs, and one after the other, we fuck up the fucking acrobatics roll and just plummet into the basement, which already feels great. It would be a fall that would cause extraordinary bodily harm to a normal person. In our case, it just caused, frustration and discomfort. But then we realize we're not alone down there, because suddenly all the lights just go out that were filtering from the hole in the ceiling. And we're like, oh crap. Oh crap. So we're about to have to try and brawl in a basement that is pitch black for everybody except the bad guy. And we have no idea how we're going to do this, because none of us are particularly adept at blind fighting. When Benny gets the idea of, hang on a minute, I can do this too. and does the illusory equivalent of casting darkness on the darkness, so now everybody's blind.
It's worth noting that Benny hadn't yet fallen down the hole. He was at the top peering down at all the people who had unfortunately fallen down ahead of him and making the wise decision not to try this right now.
And of course, he thinks this is the funniest thing on Earth because now nobody can see anything.
Yep,
It's just a
the La Sombra
whirling
can't
black
see,
mass down
the
there.
Ventru can't see, the Gangrel can't see.
So what does he do next? He pulls out an old World War II pineapple grenade that he somehow managed to get his hands on, pulls the pin, and then just lets it fall.
Benny can't see, so he's got no idea who that's going to hit.
And of course, he's a cheeky little bugger, so he's just gleefully doing it. And we're like, Benny, if that fucking kills us. He's like, nah. You've got fortitude. That lets you soak all of this damage. You'll be fine. I'm like, Benny, I swear to God.
Guess who got the brunt of the grenade damage, frenzied, and solved the problem?
That would have been me.
That would have been you. Would you take Ceres out while I tell the next one?
Yes.
So while they're still in the burnt out remains of this chantry and Benny has blown Aiden up and Aiden's busy sorting out the problem in the basement, the group Toreador, who was not part of the first chronicle, has managed to pass the acrobatics check. So the guy playing the Toreador in this campaign did not take part in the original story. So he does not know about the demon, he doesn't know about the statue artifact that was the sort of, MacGuffin from that story. And although he's heard about what happened and the Tremere were involved in all of this nonsense and problem, he's never seen any of the parts of that story in motion. He wasn't there. He arrived in the city afterwards for the sequel. So he passes the acrobatics check. And he manages to get up the stairs to the top of the chantry to continue looking for whatever it was the group was there looking for. And he finds a room that is surprisingly undamaged by fire. And in the room, which appears to be the main study of the guy who was running the chantry before it got burnt down, he finds 3 alcoves. 2 of the alcoves have vases in them with beautiful flowers and red butterflies on the vases. And then he finds a statue in the 3rd alcove. And not knowing what these things are or their significance, because he's the only character here who wasn't there for the first game, his decision is, well, these things are clearly important. I'm going to break the statue. And as I say, the rest of the group are kind of busy. Aiden's frenzying and dealing with stuff in the basement, and the players are kind of thinking about, how are we going to deal with this problem? Benny has just dropped the grenade down the hole and is a bit less concerned about what's happening. So Benny is the person who's currently paying the most attention to what I'm doing with the Toreador. And he gets this look on his face as the Toreador breaks the statue of, oh God. He just had this look of dawning comprehension that bled into horror. And he looks across the room at Aiden, who furrows his brow for a second and then also cottons on. And this look Benny had passes round the whole room, save for the Toreador, who's just looking at everybody at the table like, what? What's the big deal?
You're the idiot who saw a alcove with a little eldritch-looking statue, a scale model of the building we're in before it was burned, and a vase of weird flowers in the only untouched room of this burnt-out building that is pristine, and your thought was to whip out a frickin' old cowboy revolver and then blow it the fuck away?
To this day, the group do not know if that was the statue. But the look of dawning horror because Benny happened to be paying attention and cottoned on to what was going on while everyone was supposed to be distracted has got to be one of my favourite moments from tabletop gaming. Just the way that look passed around a room is something I will always remember. It was very
infectious. I mean, this is the same game where Benny... Alright, so in context, the sequel chronicle that we played was centered around a power struggle because after one clan got entirely burned out of existence in the city, everybody's like, man, maybe we need a new boss because none of the rest of us want to get, put to death by fire. So maybe we should look into doing something about the current power structure. And so it became a game of which regime are we going to try and prop up and which regimes are we going to let fail. And we were the wild cards as the player characters in that. And one of the factions was the High Society Toreador faction, who were run by a very old and very powerful lady who was terrifyingly capable of extreme violence. You just would never expect it because she was the socialista. And of course, she was the patron of the party's Toreador since he was new in the city and she was the eldest and most well-positioned of the clan. We as a party rather quickly decided, fuck her and everything she's got going on. We don't care, and we're just going to let her ambitions wither on the vine. To which, after a discussion with Benny about this intention, our guy gets the idea that he should go and give her the news in person. Benny may have been involved in convincing him that this was a good idea. Which, well...
By Benny may have been involved in this idea is Benny completely convinced the Toreador player that this was a great idea to go and tell the Toreador boss in person to get fucked.
Yes, in almost as many words. At which point, he goes off and toddles on to the frickin' office where she's currently occupying to let her know, without telling any of the rest of the party, so nobody had the knowledge to try and stop him from doing it except Benny, who got him to do it in the first place. Fortunately for him, he only made it to her secretary, who promised she would pass the message on, but politely told him, you should probably leave. Which is the only reason we ever saw the Toreador again.
Pretty much, and you were not happy when you found out about it and had to...
Oh, no. Instantaneous frenzy in the middle of the town hall, the vampire town hall, that prompted him to go back home. He bit his lip, marched back to his car, drove home, and proceeded to destroy his living room in a fit of utter frenzied rage. Because he figured his teammates were imbeciles who were going to get them all killed.
Not entirely wrong, but Benny did find it very, very amusing.
Oh, no, Samurai. He did not meticulously plan how to be a Chaos Goblin. He was just extremely quick-witted on his feet.
You know how you sometimes have those candies in life where if you cut them in half, they have like a word that's carved all the way through them? If you cut Benny in half, Chaos Goblin was just infused into him.
I have never heard of these
Have you
candies.
not?
With words on the inside?
Yes, I need to take you to the UK, to seaside resorts, where they have rock candy with words all on the inside.
Fair enough.
Oh my goodness, I will need to educate you guys all next time. They're a wonderful treat for children. But yeah,
So
Benny just had Chaos Goblin infused into his very
Very
bones.
much so. And he was one of the people who introduced me to tabletop RPGs, and I mean, shit. He's one of the people who really drove home the love for coming up with antic shenanigans and stories. I mean, this is not even talking about the meat space shenanigans we did that involved questionable decisions, some of a not entirely legal nature.
We
Nothing
won't talk about
horrible.
those on stream, though. Just in case, nothing horrible.
Yeah.
Benny didn't have a malicious bone in his body.
No.
Before we move on from Vampire, though, and you tell
But he
some-
was a Capellan, though.
We'll get to that in a minute as well. Before we leave Vampire behind and move on to some of your Kingmaker stories, if you'd like to tell them. One of the reasons, and yes, it's very easy to get along with Squick and Mad Ducks when I knew Benny when I was still but a young redling, and he was just a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. One of the reasons why Benny is so important to me, however, is Benny was very much one of the first people that my creative works meant something to. Because from the Savo campaign, I mentioned that we had a gentleman called Jacob playing a Malkavian. And as a result, it meant that the party had to spend quite a lot of time around the Malkavians. And I decided that the Malkavian elder in this city was a gentleman called Fairweather Moonchild IV of Kent, who had decided that the absolute best time period that humanity had currently gone through was the 1960s, and you could not pay him to leave the 1960s. So he seemed permanently drugged up, chilled out, ready for the summer of love, wearing John Lennon glasses all of the time. And thus he colloquially became known, thanks to Benny, by the group as the Hippie Mancer.
Because the dude was practically a fucking wizard for how he could do weird shit and somehow make it just seem normal.
And he was incredibly interconnected despite seeming like he was constantly off his rocker all the time. He was probably the second most powerful vampire in the city. So he became known as the Hippie Mancer. And this stuck to the point where Benny adopted that as his online handle. So anytime I would see, on Steam, Benny was popping up to play a game, or he was popping up in the Orcs under his current username, that was what he chose to use. And that came from something that I created and ran with this group of people who added to my creativity and made something that has been memorable enough that I'm able to talk about it this many years on from that happening, as if it happened a couple of weeks ago. And that is very meaningful to me. That's something that, started with a little thought in the back of my mind, just like Shoal, with all the effort you guys are putting in to flesh that out. That started as just an errant thought in the back of my mind and became something that's really been meaningful and impactful to my life. So Benny has had a huge, huge impact, and if you do see the Hippie Mancer name on the Orcs, maybe don't spam it or anything, but that was Benny. He was in there. He was part of our community. And I'm going to go and use the restroom and let Aiden tell you some more wonderful stories from the shenanigans in Kingmaker.
So before we move to that, so the reason he adopted Hippie Mancer was for a while it wasn't his moniker. It came back years after the fact because he was playing Rust with some other guys, and there was a door camper getting ready to go raid their base and do bad things to them. And he proceeds to march out there, butt naked, challenge the dude to a guitar off, and then after 20 minutes of Metallica, the guy concedes defeat, gives his shotgun, and walks off into the sunset. And when asked how he managed to pull this off, his simple answer was hippie mancy. Which is the exact sort of thing that we would have expected the Malkavian to do, which is just the mental kung fu to make you guitar off instead of violence, and then it's... Huh? There was a lot of good times. We had a lot to be said, and he was actually as mentioned, part of the Kingmaker game, which that's admittedly part of why this hits home especially hard, because the GM from that game is also no longer with us. He also passed well before his time. In his case, it was the dude's name was Jack. Freaking amazing human being, and it was leukemia, complications from a bone marrow transplant that got him. But Jack was a fascinating fellow who enjoyed doing voices for his game that he ran, which is part of what the magic was. So when you combined him with his off-the-cuff GMing, because he did a lot of homebrew stuff for Kingmaker, and really leaned into it hard. And then you've got us chucklefucks led by the gleefulest lawful omnicidal sorcerer artillery mage you've ever seen. We've got Benny's bard, who is the high counselor to the king, You've got the human paladin, who I think is a paladin of the blood god, but we never got confirmation, because he certainly wasn't the moral compass of the party. And my humble rogue, who was effectively the party assassin and somehow the moral compass. And yeah, uh, I've told the story before of how my rogue was the moral compass of the party. We stormed a fort, and of all the people to take prisoners, it was the bard and the assassin. Benny was the guy who figured out with mirror image that he could SWAT kick in the garrison door while they're all half awake trying to suit up to join in the fray, and then just scream like it's the police for them to get on the ground now, on your knees, etc. And managed to pull it off. Just a lot of what has made my love of communal storytelling came from the antics that we got up to. Everything from when he was playing the familiar for his girlfriend at the time's later wife's witch in Pathfinder, sent out to find the goblins that were terrorizing a village. He came back saying he found them. They're like, how many? One! One goblin? One camp! Fucking deadpan one. And then he had the biggest shit-eating grin when he delivered the fucking punchline. And everybody just looks at him like, you asshole. He was very good at improv, very much a yes and kind of person, which is part of what attracted him to the Legion and the Ox, is the yes and mindset that came with the Battletech antics that led to the creation of the Van Zant Free State, to Space Station 14 and the shenanigans that went in with that. Like, the community that encompasses all of you guys was one of the best things to happen to him in his last few years, because it was a community that he could cleave unto and thrive because it was built on a similar spirit. And it is no small thing to say that it made a tremendous amount of hard times much easier. So
Yeah, I don't think
I
we've
want to say thank you guys.
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned what was going on with Benny, because his life mattered far more than what caused it to come to an end. But Benny unfortunately suffered lifelong with Crohn's disease. And there may be at some point something that happens where we maybe give people the opportunity to donate to a Crohn's related charity. And if that comes up and you'd like to drop a few dollary dues that way, that would be lovely. But Benny was certainly far more than the unfair hand that life dealt. He was a wonderful presence and absolute shitposter, and being part of the Orcs was a wonderful addition to what was already his natural personality. Do you have any last Kingmaker stories you want to tell?
No, because we're at just about the hour mark. I think it's about time we moved on to world building. We've had our reminiscing and
We have.
gave a snapshot of where our background comes from as far as communal writing that ultimately led us here, because Shoal is the product of the spirit of this kind of communal writing.
Absolutely.
Which is why we have so much willingness to embrace the antics, like coming up with an underwater jet-powered dragon.
Yes.
You nerds.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that we probably wouldn't be quite the people we are if Benny hadn't been a part of our lives. There is one more story you need to tell.
Uh-oh.
Could you please tell chat about one?
I did.
Oh, you did already?
Yes, I did. There was while you were AFK.
Fair enough. I'm so glad that you mentioned the one camp story, because I think that encapsulates just how cheeky Benny was to his very core.
So I remember very explicitly kind of the ultimate incarnation of that, where this was when I was dating the lady who later would go on to marry Benny. he met his wife because she was my girlfriend at the time, and honestly, they were much better for each other than I ever was for her. Part of how I know this is we spent one afternoon sat in our apartment on campus just trolling the shit out of her with circular reasoning and logic for about an hour and a half. Every time she's trying to make sense out of the bullshit we're saying, we're like, but then it all circles back to, and she's like, what? What? We're trying to express that it was Loki all along, except no, actually it wasn't, except that it was, but it wasn't, but it was, but it wasn't, but it... And every time she thinks she's on the same page, we then reverse course and fucking go in a completely different tangent. And the moment she gets on board with the tangent, suddenly it's hard to starboard, and we're back on the original tangent. She's like, what the fuck is happening? And it was very much the fact that he had a tremendous capacity for pulling bullshit out of his ass verbally and shitposting like a champion and keeping the antics rolling. The last story I'll tell is at one point a dude was running a game that neither of us were actually players in, who approached us and asked us for a special request. The party paladin in that game was getting a little too close to unpaladin-like behavior, and he wanted to do a special one-on-one session to see if the paladin would cleave under the straight and narrow. And what he wanted was for each of us to play fellow paladins to be the proverbial devil and angel on, in fact, literal devil and angel on the dude's shoulder, because I was tapped to play a celestial pretending to be a human paladin. Benny was tapped to be a devil pretending to play a human paladin. And he was to run through a series of short trials, and there were all, in each of them, there was an option that would be quick and expedient or have personal gain, but at the cost of his moral compass. I couldn't keep up, man. I couldn't keep up because he found way too many ways to be a cheeky bastard and make being an asshole seem like it was the right thing to do at the time. I'm like, man, I'm gonna lose this fight, and there's nothing I can do about it because your mental kung fu is strong. Why?
I'm going to read what Samurai's just popped into chat because I think it deserves saying out loud. This is bringing back memories for me. Benny is a lot like our Donnie. Donnie passed away a couple of years ago, also from complications from Crohn's. In the 20 or so years my group has been gaming, we've won 2 to 3 all-timer campaigns, a Star Wars game, a Fallout campaign, and East Texas. Donnie was a core part of the RP for those groups. He could not remember a single rule to save his life, and we had to write all his characters for him. But the dude could RP like nobody's business. His totem was a milk jug that held Stretch's rocket fuel. Donnie took a shot or two one night and gave us the best performance we've ever seen as the cannibal cook for the Fallout party. And right as the game hit the climax for the night, he passed out. Since that day, over a decade ago, we've kept that milk jug on the shelf in our game room. That is wonderful to hear, Samurai, and I'm glad that we've been able to bring, you know, another person whose legacy deserves to be heard into the light through Benny's legacy. And if there's one thing that, you know, we could ask for you guys to go forth and do, knowing that a wonderful orc soul has passed, is to please go out today, go out this weekend, find some joy in the world, and if you can cause some mischief, because the world is better with those kind of personalities and light moments in it.
That is the big thing. Like, before we move on, the last thing I'll say, that is the big thing that Benny would want, is live. Don't just exist, live.
Yeah, we
because
talked about
he was
that last week.
Yep, it's very fitting that we were having that discussion while he was on his deathbed. We didn't know it at the time, but it was very fitting.
Yes, and Terry Pratchett does have a saying about, you know, no man is truly forgotten whose ripples are yet felt in the world, and that's part of what today is making sure that the rather large ripples that Benny has definitely put into the world get even bigger and stretch even further.
Yep.
And for those of you who were here last night, we did ask Parallax to do something. And for those of you who weren't, We did get a Capellan mech painted in Benny's honor that is now
I
out
kind
there.
of, I kind of ambushed Parallax and asked if he would be kind enough to do a Capellan mech for Numeric Workshop, and he dug out a Firebee, painted it in the colors of the Death Commandos, the premier Capellan Special Forces unit for those not BattleTech savvy, because Benny, like the little shit he is, enjoyed arguing with me about because I'm a Fed Sons player generally if I'm not playing Mercenaries. He enjoyed arguing that the Capellan Confederation were the good guys because fuck the Fed Sons, they're a bunch of bullies, and we had such a good time going back and forth about it. They are his faction, not least of which because they're also sneaky, conniving shits.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have that. But I did say that as we moved into Shoal, I wanted to do some things today. All the stories now about Benny made me walk my turn into the light side. Yeah. If anything that we've said today, reminiscing about a wonderful personality that I'm genuinely honoured to have met, has brought good things back for any of you, then, this was very worth it today and exactly the sort of thing that's important and wanted. So, let me take the Firebee off the screen. Because we do have some Shoal stuff to do this week, and I'm going to kick Iden out because he needs to go and do a thing to the Jeep so we can take the dogs out for a meal. We're going to take the dogs to the local fish restaurant tonight because we now have a wonderful Jeep for puppy transport, but puppies can currently get forward into the passenger part of the cab, and that won't do, so we need to make sure that's safe for them for our long journey north and west later this year, and we're going to take them out in it today for a test run and get them some fish to eat at a restaurant that's very dog friendly, so that will be lovely. Beep beep, it's a Jeep, absolutely. Puppy Jeep.
Boop boop, it's a Jupe. Jupe Wrongler.
We will absolutely be crashing in to visit the Dr. Chef. 100%. I very much want to do that.
Oh yeah, we're trying to plan our route to visit and meet and greet it where possible.
So, things I want to do today in Shoal with you guys. Somebody came up with, I think it was in the Discord channel over in the Orcs to do with Shoal. Somebody made the wonderful suggestion that we need to have an Orcsolotl. So
Oh my
we need to
God.
figure out what environment that's going to live in and what that thing's like. So that's on the list today. We've told our TTRPG stories, and I think just by the fact that our sadly passed friend has had such a huge impact on our memories and lives and joyous things we want to talk about says everything about how valid a story medium TTRPGs are. I want to look over the write-ups I did for the couple of races that I added after last week's discussion, but most importantly, we talked weeks ago when we first started deciding what some of our Leviathans might be, what we wanted to do. We talked about there potentially being an abandoned mech that a hermit crab moved into and psionically bonded with. So there's this mech wandering around that just has a hermit crab for a pilot, and of course its own personality because of how we've decided mechs will work in this setting. I think the hermit crab mech, Leviathan, needs to be named Benny because it sounds like the sort of nonsense he would pull and put together, and I did put this to his wife and she is 100% on board for it. So I think we maybe need to flesh out Benny,
I have an idea for that.
the crab mech.
Benny the Crab Mech should be called the Furin. Because it's large, it's stompy, it's armored, it's a crustacean, which means it's going to be unkillable.
Yeah. It can have both names, that works.
Or maybe it's the Furin class mech that the crab inhabited. I don't know.
That would also work. So we will flesh that out in a short while and we'll work our way through this. But I would very much like both for Orcsolotls to be a thing and to be a reference to the community Shoal came from. Orcsolittles are the baby Orcsolotls. We could do that. That would be allowed.
Oh my god.
So,
I was gonna say,
Go on.
instead of the noodly Naga people, why not Oxalotl people?
Do we want to have a Do we want to do that? Do we want to make it that one of our leticals, the sort of eel or naga-shaped body peoples, do we maybe have one group of them that are oxalotls instead and have the extra fringes around their face? How do we want to do that? We want to make them a sentient species? Oxalotl peoples, I like it. Alright, let me, I will do this as a poll. Give me just a moment and I will pull it up as a poll. This is land masses. It's both the class and the original mech name since it was the first of its class. Because that's the hermit crab's name, and the hermit crab sees no difference between themselves and their shells. That sounds wonderful. Right, let's do a poll first to figure out. Okay, do we want... And I need to move PubCam so I can actually see what I'm typing. Okay. Oxalotls. Are they sapient? Or just critters? Sapiens. Latical. Offshoot. Cutest damn critters ever. Okay, we're not going to allow for additional votes. It's going to be for 2 minutes. There we go. There's the poll. We can now decide what we want to do. If we do make them a group of sentients, Doctor Who will make them a sort of sub-bloodline of the Latical. So we won't be adding a new species in. We'll just be adding a variant of a species we already have. Because I completely agree with you. We have enough sentience after the work we did last week. It should be a mech that was meant to locomote bipedally, but because of the crab pilot, it now shuffles sideways even faster than it could have done with forward movement. And turns up where you least expect it, because if there was another thing that Benny was amazing at, it was appearing behind you in complete silence, and you turn around and he was just there. Yeah, the puppies are stirring just a little bit. Oh, by vote is on? I could have sworn I turned that off. I pressed the button to turn that off. Well, we will let it play out as it is. Not the end of the world. I did try to turn it off. I swear Twitch just hates me. It's a miracle I don't mess up the predictions on WBPLW every week. I have a feeling that shoving too many sentients dilutes the specialness and all. That's entirely true, and it also makes it hard to track them. So that was why we wanted to limit it when we were talking about what we had last week. I heard you do it, so I assume Twitch is just being weird. Yeah, Twitch hates me, and I'm just waiting for the week that we do a prediction on WBPLW, and I click the wrong button and award all of the goob to, like, one person who clicked on some stupid thing I added to the prediction, and it'll just all go horribly wrong. Alright, we're nearly at the end of our poll and we'll know what we're doing. I might show you guys on outro at the end of the stream today. I have a thing for WBPLW because we are on the road to Slamhalla coming up in a few weeks' time, and I may or may not have made some stuff for that. Okay, so we want them to be a sapient tactical offshoot, it seems like. It was a close race, but that's what we've decided. And it looks like people were very sensible with their voting, and I appreciate that. The subspecies is a great idea. The law region could be that the radiation speeds up mutation and evolution. Yep, and you know, just sometimes people look radically different. To an alien, if you put somebody with, you know, a Caucasoid body plan next to someone with a Negroid body plan, there are, you know, quite big differences, despite the fact we're clearly the same species. So it's fine. It's just how Laticols are. I do try to have fun rants, and I really appreciate that so many of you guys come along to listen to me witter about my first and greatest passion. All right, so we're going to have Oxalotls be... Let me bring up my thing so I can actually type. Oxalotls, they are going to be a bloodline, effectively, of the Laticol species. Their children are Oxalidls. There you go. All right, that's that sorted and can get written up. Now, I did say that I also wanted to review some additions to Shoal this week, so I'm going to click over to that. Because last week we discussed cephalonids, which were our squid people. We discussed ceratinoids, which are our crab people, and I have something to show you on the ceratinoid front that was posted in the Orcs today and is absolutely awesome. Let me pull up OBS so I can show you guys. I haven't taken the cultural elements out of the ceratinoids write-up yet. That's still to be done, obviously, with the devastating news we received. My week has been completely upended. I have been completely useless, but I haven't forgotten to do it. It just hasn't happened yet. But the wonderful Tired German, who's here most weeks and has done us some wonderful artwork that will be assuredly making its way to the compendium in one way or the other, decided to draw some ceratinoids for us, and here they are. How cool are they? If these are now sentients, I still like them being a coastal race living in an estuary. Yeah, we could absolutely make it that the Auxolotl laticles are a particular group of people who live on the land. We know laticles do that, so... I apologise for Pip yelling in the background. He's not very happy with the fact that, you know, Dad's outside and he isn't. I think Tired German did a wonderful job with this because, yes, ceratinoids are big. They get much, much bigger. At least the deep sea ones do, which I'm sure you can guess which is which. But, I mean, they look wonderful. And he took the description that I'd written up and has really made it something unique and special. This is not how I would have depicted them, yet this is exactly how they're supposed to look, I think. I think they're wonderful. When that popped up this morning, I was like, oh, wonderful things. Shoal's getting bigger. And yeah, they are surprisingly adorable for crab people. So I really hope, considering you guys are obsessed with crabs, that you appreciate the crab people Tired German has drawn for us. I like the elder one with the knobbly staff. Yes. Yes, because one of the things we discussed last week was the write-up that I did had some cultural elements built in. And I think one of the things that people wanted to maybe explore was having a archivist-type ceratinoid who's not so fussed with all of the technology, etc., but maybe a lawkeepers and the like. And I like to think that's what the one on the left does. He's very into his history. They taste like crab and talk like people. I don't know, Ed. We'll have to find out probably the hard way. So that was our ceratinoids. I will turn that off so we can continue down what we're up to. We also added in... Thank you, dear. We added in the laticals, which were our eel-bodied people, and we know that we're now going to have a small offshoot group that probably lives in an estuary area that will be our Auxolotls. And that will be fun. And then we had two more groups to add in. We discussed that we were going to have whale/shark people that were offshoots of the same ancestor. And we were going to have snail people. So I did do some writing up for that. Haven't updated the PDF that you guys can access yet, but I will do that as soon as I get the chance to do so. But we're going to leave it today, and you guys can let me know what you think. So for our snail people, I figured we could call them podlands. Many of Shoal's people have adapted into large forms to manage the challenges Shoal presents. Not so the podlands. Podlands are dwarf-sized by Terran terminology, but distinctive for the hard shells each bears on their back. Often described as snail people, podlands have a complex biology to go with their complex life. Each podland grows a pointed shell over the course of their life that their vital organs are protected by. The shell, made of metallic compounds, forms the hardest surface in a podland's body, with a soft endoskeleton made of cartilage making up the rest of their firm structures. Podlands have 2 forelimbs with 3-fingered gripping hands, while the rest of their body terminates in 2 trailing legs that can either move together as a swimming tail or operate as a rudimentary legs using a hydrostat system similar to how octopus limbs work. To a human, however, their faces are perhaps more unusual. Bearing a short muzzle, podlands have eyes that extend on stalks, as well as 2 trailing tendrils at the front corners of their jaws that detect heat and motion. Nomadic toolsmiths. Podlands are typically nomadic, roaming the oceans in search of not just the minerals and plants that make up much of their diet, but also metal deposits and active lava vents under the oceans, as they have conquered their environment by the use of tools above all else. Podlands have a tool for every occasion and often adorn the outsides of their shells not just with personal trinkets and possessions, but also tools that they have made and use as a point of pride. Abyssal anomalies. The abyss of Shoal is not what even the most broad-minded soul might call habitable. Between the crushing pressure, dangerous leviathans, and unknown hazards of ancient coral and unpredictable volcanic activity, the zone is not known as home to most. There are, however, tribal nodes of podlands that have moved into these treacherous depths. Little is known about these isolationist groups, as they tend to eschew the shallower waters save for rare occasions. While not outright hostile, abyssal podlands seem to be as nomadic as their kin and are thus rarely encountered or well understood. How do we feel about those guys? Iden is not rustling a plastic bag. Pip is currently destroying a plastic bag.
No, it's the packing paper.
Okay, well, packing paper, plastic bag, same difference. He's very noisy. Okay, let's see what chat has to say now we've cleared the stuff out of the way. An extremely old and gigantic ceratinoid that is the archivist, since ceratinoids are basically immortal as long as they can keep eating and molting like lobsters. We could do that. That could absolutely be something that we have. And maybe we've got groups of ceratinoids who argue over who the oldest ceratinoid actually is. Have we decided on any of the eel folks' social mores? I don't think we've decided on that definitively because we haven't properly hit culture as yet, but we can definitely look into that when we get there.
Eel folks' social mores? Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Doctor Who has a cultural idea. What are books' records? Would they be inscribed on coral fragments, like burning a psychic memory into the coral and then reading is experiencing the memory? That's a very interesting idea. And obviously having a more long-term mundane idea of books as well, with all of the stone and the like, that's more resistant to weathering, because coral probably doesn't last forever. So having the two different types would be really interesting. I love the snails. Snails seem fun. About what I thought they would be last week. I love that. Excellent. Excellent. I'm going to make podlands the ones who helped the Sea Forge break the Amemnorite, replacing shell with shape in the process. That sounds very interesting. Eric has been doing a lot of work over in the Orcs Shoal chat on myths, legends, and faith stuff that we'll be able to talk about when we get to the culture section. So if you guys want to have an input into that, do head on over to the Orcs. The Shoal channel is a fun time. I do pay attention to everything that goes through there. Them dogs is cute, them dogs is cute. And one of them goes to his forever home tomorrow. I've got something I want to show you with that in a minute. I'm very excited for when we get to culture as well. Another thing I wanted to bring up today, Eric's been doing a lot with regards to religion, faith, legends, myths, and all of that sort of stuff. Ed has been very focused on how humanity will work in this setting. One of the things that we were discussing is I have one brain and one period of time and one set of interests that I'm good at. And we've got all of these other people who are contributing. And some of you have specific areas of Shoal that you're particularly inspired by. And for Ed, that's the how will humans work in this setting. So I postulated that letting Ed sort of take the lead on that might be a good idea, which is not to say that it has to be all written by Ed and only Ed's ideas, but because Ed's got a good handle on this and where they think things should go, and have put far more thought into it than I ever will, it makes sense to sort of have people who have specific interests take on specific areas of the setting that can flesh them out without having to wait on me. And we were potentially talking about maybe linking a Google Doc for specific areas that are being developed in the announcements channel for Shoal over in the Orcs, so that if you guys have ideas that you want to feed into those areas that other people are doing the heavy lifting on rather than me, you guys can do that. How do you guys feel about doing that? Are you happy for their, deferring somewhat to project leads for certain areas, but still being obviously able to vote on what stays, what goes, and input your ideas? And would you like to have access to those sort of brainstorming documents if I was to put them up? How do you guys feel about that? Yes, Virgil is going forth to join the hounds of a household, and will go with honour and glory and fluffy, fuzzy Bjorks, and of course his adorable, fluffy little black heart. We're going to miss him terribly, but I'm very excited for the life he's going to have. While you guys let me know how you feel about what I just said, I'm going to show you something I made this week, because I've had to do all the paperwork for transferring Virgil's ownership, because that's the responsible thing to do. He's got all his health paperwork, all his shots paperwork. All of that will go to his new owners. And so for the top of the paperwork, I wanted to make something. And I made it this. I made it just a little icon of the first 3 puppies that we've helped to bring into the world. And that's at the top of all of the paperwork. It's Virgil, Anka, and Lupa.
Guy on Broadway, 100% correct. It will be a significant net happiness improvement in the world. It's just going to be a tearjerker to see him go, even though we know that he's going to be bringing a tremendous amount of joy to a lovely family.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Stolen Bike comic is absolutely a meme, because the nice thing here is that, you know, nobody's committed a crime in the process of making the net happiness in the world go up. This is all very willing, and I'm very excited for where he's going to go. Ed says, a good leader is not a dictator, but another team member that coordinates the efforts of the team. Absolutely. Good leaders step down to help everybody else step up and all go together, rather than dragging from the front or pushing from behind. So, yes.
Once again, 3 Beagle Moon update is requested.
Yeah, I will have to do a 3 Beagle Moon update at some point. It'll come. It's just a heck of a year this year, and fitting everything in that I want to get done is it's going to be a bit of a time, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
You know, Doc, that's not a bad idea.
I mean, I'd do something a bit higher quality than just this if we were going to do a tattoo, but yes, they are adorable beagles. Right, we'll take them away and we'll get back to what we're doing. Okay, so it seems like we're happy with both the snail people write-up. We're good with that, and we're also happy with the idea of other people taking lead on certain areas of Shoal, but everybody still being able to contribute and vote on what we put in as we go through it on stream. Because no one person is just going to take a thing and run off with it. It's always going to be a community effort. I'd take a sticker of that. Aww. Alright, so we have another set of people that we need to review. Grimo says, I'm passionate about my little shallow water crab people. You should be. You should be. They're all wonderful, and I'm very much looking forward to when we do culture, which will be coming. It is coming. It's all coming. Right, we had one more group of sentients that we wanted to add in, and my decision for them, for what we should name them to try and keep them, you know, easily differentiatable, is the Salashians. And these are our whale/shark people that were a really interesting idea you guys put together last week. So I'll read this one out and then we'll see what we think about this. Akin to the ceratinoids, Salashians have 2 distinct bands descended from a common ancestor. They are also united by a truly unique Shoal-I evolutionary approach to sapient progress. Both groups utilize a symbiotic relationship with a dependent species to be able to manipulate the world around them. This means that Salashians are the most animal-looking, by Terran standards, of Shoal's peoples, but they are certainly no less intelligent despite their body plans. Salashians can be broken down into the deeper living whale folk, whose large bodies have a streamlined body plan with a powerful tail behind 4 fin limbs that allows them to move through Shoal's depths and strong currents. Unlike whales, this group of Salashians does not require air and operates on a gill system like most other underwater life. The second group favour shallower waters and are sometimes called shark folk due to their sharp jaws and carnivorous diet. While the whale folk operate on an up-down motion of the tail to manage Shoal's waters, the shark folk favour a back and forth, side-to-side motion for speed and easy gliding in the shallower depths. Symbiotes. All Selachians are reliant on a sentient symbiote species that has developed in tandem with these unique peoples. The Susella is a species of psionically active fish that to a human looks like a squid and a lamprey had a child. They have multiple dexterous limbs descending from a short torso containing their gut, topped with a head bearing 2 soulful eyes and a sucker-like mouthful of short, gripping teeth. When born, a Susella will travel for a week or 2 within the limbs of its mother until it psionically bonds with a Selachian host. The Susella then attaches to its host just behind their forefins by securing their teeth into the flesh of their host. A process which seems to cause the Selachian no real discomfort, as the flesh in this area has evolved to accommodate the presence of the Susella and contains far fewer pain receptors. Once with its new host, the Susella responds to psionic commands from its host to use its limbs on their behalf. With age, this unique bond and willing cooperation between species extends to the point that a Selachian can command its symbiotes even when they detach from the body, which can lead to some very bizarre situations by human standards, especially when watching Selachi chefs at work in a kitchen. The boon to Selachians is very obvious, and it seems the Susella benefits just as much. A much smaller species, their bond with their large hosts allows for a safe and protected breeding, easy access to food, whether from the host proper while attached, or shared meals when detached from the Selachi host. Sight. The shark folk favour eyes a human might recognise, though they are also highly aware of particles afloat in the water around them from scent glands in their snouts. Between these two senses, the shark folk tend to be very aware of their surroundings of their own accord. For the whale folk, their eyes are much less acute and do not perceive colours. They do, however, seem to perceive much through their link with their Susella companions. Susellas have large acute eyes that can perceive colours and into the UV spectrum. Coral concordance. Selachians are expert readers of coral. Reliant on psionics to survive and fully interact with the world, both groups of Selachians are incredibly well attuned to the song of the coral and thus make excellent coral singers for Titan production and utilisation. Selachians are also critical for the coral work that allows a Titan to slowly gain its own sapience through use with its pilots. Where Selachians swim and live, a rare and refined coral often flourishes, a coral needed for the brain of a Titan for full activation. On the downside, however, this does make Selachians far more susceptible to the unique mental illnesses Shoal can induce, such as froth. How do we feel about that?
That shit sounds cool as hell. The idea of basically having a satellite of appendages.
Yes.
Yeah. That's,
Woo! Can you imagine what Selachian entertainment must look like? Right, let's see what chat's got. Question, do we have traditional mer people? I think the closest we have is probably the Laticol species. Could get quite sort of mermaid looking. But no, we don't have any direct, literal mermaid, as in how Disney portrays them. We don't have anything that looks quite the same. Are Selachian mammals or sharks? Hard to say. Because that's, of course, using Earth biology, and we're just a little bit weirder than that. So we're similar to certain things, but I don't know that we want to dive into biology on quite that solid a level. That's an interesting write-up. That sounds baller. How many appendages can a Selachian have at once? That's a good question. More with age. We'll have to decide on what we think the upper limit should be. High Lord has seen enough hentai to know where this is going. I've no idea what you're talking about, High Lord. Multi-armed sharks and whales hanging out in the undersea clubs would be cool. Absolutely. Oh my god, can you imagine a Selachian rave?
oh my god.
They call their entertainment the music of the spheres. Free-floating limbs is sick. Yeah, I really like the idea of the free-floating limbs. Neither sharks nor mammals, but a secret third thing. Untranslatable. Yes, it's a series of clicks and whistles that make sense underwater, and if you have psionic attunement. It doesn't work in human language.
One king only.
Okay, so it sounds like we're pretty happy with them as well. We're pretty good on what we've come up with. We have the drugs and everything. Yes, we do. The idea of the pearls for that is just wonderful. Shark and whale raves in massive concert venues. Yes.
Y'all know Crab Rave? Well, get ready for this.
It comes with its own sonar.
Oh, and then we have summoned sonar. Hello, noob skills.
Alright, so it seems like we're pretty happy with the write-ups of the things we came up with last week. I'm really pleased to hear that. Alright, I want to make sure that we give enough time to figuring out what we want to do with the very important hermit crab mech, Benny. So I'm going to move down to the Leviathan section, and I think we need to spend our last half hour making sure we get that done. And if we finish that, we can maybe start thinking about our coral as a whole, because that's going to be our next big thing that we really need to attack. So let me find Leviathans. Here we go. Right. We knew we were going to have a hermit crab mech, so I'm going to make our own thing here, and we're going to work on that. So, Iden suggested that the mech be a Furin mech. Do we want that to be a specific name for the mech, and the crab is called Benny? Or do we want that to be the class of mech?
So I like
Go on.
Eric's idea where it is both the class of mech and the name of the mech, and it is the first of its class. Because
I
you
like
get
that
that with
too.
ships.
Yeah, I
you
like
get
that
that with
too.
ships.
How do you feel about that, chat? Are we good to do that? And I know we've now got 47 people here, which has grown since the start of the stream. For anybody who missed our first half this week, I'm
Noob
sorry,
skills, it's
noob
all good,
skills.
man.
I'm going to try to do a brief catch up on where we're at, but yeah, if you're not following Shoal, it makes this very complicated and confusing. Anybody who wasn't here at the beginning of the stream, one of the things we've been doing this week is reminiscing about a gentleman called Benny who was an Orkslander who very unfortunately passed away last Friday during or after the stream that we were having last week. And he was a friend of both Iden and myself, and we wanted to spread his legacy by sharing all of the shenanigans he got up to, and we absolutely would like to memorialize him with a character in Shoal that we've been building together, as Benny was a very big fan of the BPL and everything that it got up to. And you know, this is a BPL work, and Benny deserves to be here. So we know that we want to have a psionically active mech, because all mechs on Shoal are, well, not all mechs, but a lot of mechs on Shoal are, and that there is this particular one that we knew we wanted to implement that is a mech whose pilot either died or was abandoned. We can figure all of that out. And a hermit crab moved in and bonded with the mech, and this hermit crab is now effectively a Leviathan because it's piloting a mech and nobody can convince it to leave. And we're going to make this the Benny mech because it's the sort of nonsense he would pull. Alright, let's see what chat's had to say. Lots of secrets, Coral. Coral make great guys. They have all sorts. Oh my goodness. I hate you guys. These puns are terrible. Do I need to shout at Mrs. Samurai to get her to thump you? That might be necessary.
Gentle giant, sure, but also a problem that pops up from time to time because it just has a knack for doing things.
I would love for it to carry Benny's personality, which is to say that everybody knows it's out there, it turns up when you least expect it without any fanfare, causes some very benign chaos, and then disappears again. And you just won't see it until it decides that it's decided to turn up.
That does sound like him.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go down the economically unfeasible route, but maybe the Furin class has been replaced with something more advanced since. And that would be absolutely fine. We could do that. Benny could be the Deus Ex Machina that inserts chaos that ultimately helps the protags. We can certainly write stories like that. And I would very much like to see Benny the Crab Mech turn up. I will thump the mister when work allows. I don't know what he did, but he probably deserves it. Thank you, Mrs. Samurai. Obsolete, discarded mech. Okay. Level 10 cognito hazard, but you can't perceive it unless it wants you to. That very much sums it up, yes. Okay, so are we good with the Hermit Crab mech being a discontinued model that a hermit crab moved into and bonded with its personality, and it's just out there now causing chaos. Because that sounds pretty good to me. Okay. The Furin Leviathan, colloquially known as Benny, is a unique Leviathan in that it is, I can spell, not only of manufactured design, but also a happy accident. The Furin class of Titan was an early coral mech line, with the Furin Leviathan being made up of the body of the very first production model, named Furin for the model models that would come after it, its production line. The Furin was slowly phased out of service when newer and more versatile Titans were engineered, leaving the original Furin at rest while the Shoal people decided what to do with decommissioned Titans. During this period, an enterprising hermit crab found its way into Furin's pilot compartment, and in a twist of fate no one to this day understands or can fully replicate, the crab bonded with Furin's on-board personality. The result is... how do I want to phrase this? The result is a wonderfully quirky Titan that has summarily removed itself from Shoal control to roam the oceans as it pleases, as a benign... roam the oceans as it pleases. It seems to be something of a benign force of chaos.
This, your Pratchett is showing. I want you to know that.
Benign force of chaos in the world that appears unexpectedly and often with mischief in tow, before returning to the wider ocean, despite any attempts to corral it. On the few occasions that any Shoal has managed to get close enough for long enough to hold a full conversation with the Titan, it has made it very clear that the on-board pilot, the hermit crab, wishes to be known as Benny, and it will not respond to any other hailing codes. There we go. How do we feel about that, chat? Furin has evolved into the Shoaly word for, oh god, please, not again. Doctor Who asked, is this related to the German word for father?
I have no idea.
I mean,
Furensten was the name of the dwarf. It was.
I mean, you describe him as Father Furensten, so yes.
Yeah, he was Father Furensten, effectively being kind of the dwarven Catholic. Though Benny spelled it differently, that's not an issue for this
I can
by
change
any
it
stretch.
very happily. How did Benny spell it?
Furin.
Furin. We will do that then. That makes a lot more sense. Furin.
We just fixed those storage silos.
Right, I'll make sure that I go through and correct all of those over time. Let's see what else chat had to say. Changing scopes of warfare can like help before dreadnoughts. We had battleships. Class mech was built during a time when its capabilities were doctrine at the time. Was discontinued as different styles made more sense. Yeah, that is the nature of technology. Is you start with what you can do, and as you refine and get better at things, and generational learning allows for the next generation to get to the same point you were at in less time. You can expand on things, etc., etc. So yeah. I would suggest that Benny has a habit of making upgrades, making Benny's capabilities unpredictable. That's a wonderful idea. Let's add that in. Furin Benny is also known to appear around Titan decommissioning sites, where he is known to pilfer and appropriate unneeded upgrades, which he is somehow seemingly integrating into his form, which means the people of Shoal never quite know what Furin is up to, capable of, or thinking. Only that it will probably be some small amount of trouble when they find out. Okay, let's carry on reading what chat has. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to get shot by a battleship, and even one today could cause some damage. Modern arms strategy favour other things. Yep, very on board with everything you're saying, Broadway. Keeps renovating his home. Funeral is about to be the sheriff. Yeah, God, please not again. Okay, let me add that in so that I don't forget it. A surprising result of this is the cultural influence Furin has had on all of Shoal, as the word Furin has become synonymous with, oh, I'm going to put God in commas because we'll replace it with some of the faith stuff Eric's been working on once we decide what we're keeping. Oh God, not again. There you go, that's added in and immortalised. Let's see what else we've got. To describe the problem that keeps coming back when you least expect it. Yes. Your Pratchett is showing his high praise indeed. It is. It's a very kind thing for Aiden to have said. The mould in my bathroom has become a real Furin. This is amazing. Perfect. The mech like the cut of the crab's jib. Crab is very, by Shoaly, good looking crab claw. Yeah, I mean, he is the most handsome crab on all of Shoal. Something about the hermit crab renovates the mech unpredictably. I think the best way for us to do that is to allow all of the different peoples of Shoal to have theories on how Furin is upgrading itself and never actually address what's actually going on. We should never dig into how it's actually happening. We just know that it is. Hey boss, contract on scope. Benny. Oh fuck, not again. We just fixed those storage silos. Big stompy hermit crab noises. Well, at least we're getting stick time. Random acts of chaos are referred to as acts of Benny. Yes, I will add that in as well. Similarly, random acts of chaos or unpredictable forces of nature are often described as acts of Benny. Wonderful. I'm loving all of this. The innocent sounding name just really does it in the vein of Steve. Yes, it really does work. People adding upgrades to him. Do you think this will work? Throw it on Benny. If it works, rad. If not, well, Benny will find something to do with it. I love that. So he's part of cargo? Yes. Benny is very much part of cargo. He's the spirit of cargo here on Shoal.
Land of stolen things.
When someone is acting strange and unpredictable, they start referring to them as they're being a bit of a Benny right now. Nobody knows why Benny has a pole with bifurcated fabric on it mounted on his back, and asked he just cackles. Unqualified Shoalie breaking into a Titan decommissioning site to jack a mech and make a good heist story. Write it, Wolf. I'd love to read it. That sounds amazing. A mythology of Benny? Yes. The first mech sent into space found Benny already there waiting on them. Oh, this is all wonderful. Benny is the ghost mech of cargo. Yes, this all makes me very happy. You are making my heart very glad right now, chat. I absolutely love this. Insurance does not cover acts of Seamoth, Isopod, Tide, or Benny. We have a Benny situation down in transport and diplomacy. Actual Benny or Benny worker? Benny worker. The boss down there is undercutting pay. You may well show up then, because I'd rather that than this. How large is Benny? I mean, can human-sized people go into his warehouse on his back to search for parts that can't be found anymore? I don't know. How large is Benny, chat? How big was a Furin mech? How large is Benny? I will let you guys absolutely decide that. Insurance often contains clauses such as... There we go, that's covered as well. 2 times the size of modern models. Okay. Big. We think he should be big. What about if we say that he was perhaps 3 times the size of a large ceratinoid? So that he would have been, you know, piloted... Okay, he must be gigantic, as Benny is larger than life. That's very sweet. Bigger than is practical, which is why that model no longer is made. Okay, well, we know ceratinoids are already pretty big. What if we go with sort of 4 times the size of a large ceratinoid as a sort of scale in Shoal terms?
Can I just make the comment that ceratinoid really sounds like an XCOM alien type?
You're welcome. I'm game. That works. Okay, we will go with that then. Let me put those notes in. The Furin mech is roughly 4 times the size of a large adult deep dweller ceratinoid, though Benny's size is subject to change. See below upgrades. Then that way Benny can be whatever size we need him to be for whatever story you want to put him in. There you go. How's that, chat? How do we feel about that? Oh, welcome in. First time chat from FMJ Anarchy. I hope you enjoy the Discord. It's a heck of a time over there. We get up to some nonsense. Come on in and collect your beans. Bigger Benny is better. It makes it funnier when he shows up in buildings that he shouldn't fit in. Absolutely. I mean, Furin Benny is just going to be a cryptid at this point. A Leviathan-sized cryptid. First and maybe last of the Super Mechs, as they were too expensive to make more than one. Yeah, we can fiddle with that as we decide where Benny fits into various stories. How the hell did Benny even get in there? We should also find him on top of things he absolutely should not be on, because his namesake was wonderful for climbing up to places he absolutely should not be.
Oh God, wasn't he? we got our way into places that made no sense. It was kind of the done thing.
Alrighty. Was there anything else I desperately wanted to... There was one other thing I desperately wanted to cover this week. And I think Benny would be on board with the last thing that I want to go over to round out our stream by the top of the hour. Benny has a mass-changing drive that lets him grow and shrink. Let's not go that far. That's too many shenanigans.
And now we're going away from Pratchett to Douglas Adams.
All right, I'm going to click back over to the Orcs because there was some wonderful things that were said in the Shoal chat over there that I absolutely want to read out. So we've got some of the folks that we see here every week who are very active over in the Discord, including Mr. Blackfire, Ed's very busy over there, Tired German, lots of familiar faces. And one of the things that was being discussed, because we were talking about humans in the setting, was that humans, when they come to Shoal, are getting in over their heads. Shoal is incredibly dangerous to humans, and humans being humans, they're going to turn up here anyway, because that's what humanity does. When we're faced with an impossible environment, we throw meat at it until we figure it out. But Ed did make the point that humans are going to be somewhat comical at times because of finding unique ways to die on Shoal. To which... that's exactly what Mr. Blackfire said. Dumb Ways to Die starts playing in the background, and some interesting suggestions were made. I'm going to read out the couple that happened, and I would very much love it if everybody who's here at some point popped by the Shoal chat over in the Orcs and dropped some more ridiculous dumb ways to die, because I think it's the kind of thing Benny would have enjoyed. So the first one that we had was, subject ingested local spiced cuisine. Apparently this is a neurotoxin to humans. Experience seemed to be unpleasant. Further study needed. This was then followed up with, subject attempted to ride local fauna. Local fauna perceived subject as lunch. And then my favourite one that we had so far was from Mr. Blackfire, who said, local pet species ferrofuzz smuggled onto station. Breached 4 compartments to atmosphere consuming metals. Shell now too hard to penetrate with what we have on hand. Was eventually coaxed out of an airlock and wandered off. New rules about safe pets passed. Because we all know that the ferrofuzz is currently the cutest thing that Shoal has. I would love to see some more dumb ways to die, you know, humanity in space, suffering terribly. If you want to pop over there and drop some more, I'd love to see them. They would make me very happy. The fact that you guys have joined in with this so wholeheartedly this week, listened to our wonderful stories about Benny and how important he was. If you carry a little bit of his spirit with you into what you get up to this weekend, Iden and I would certainly appreciate that. As we said, the BPL and the Orcs was very important to him as something he enjoyed in the later days of his life, and Benny was a fantastic and important person. So this has been a very cathartic and pleasing stream, and I appreciate you guys all being here. He's just covered into somebody else's problem field. Now we've very much gone Douglas Adams. Random interesting thing, I just found a 160-year-old coin in my change drawer. Jesus, that's very cool. Thought he's more like a TARDIS. Oh my god, no. Benny's not allowed TARDIS technology. The ferrofuzz was the best one. Yeah, I agree. That was really good. I fully support shenanigans. I do not support tomfoolery. It's a fine line. Profound Mad Ducks quoting there. If they spaced the Ferrofuzz, that means it's probably still in orbit. Probably, and probably only getting stronger.
So that's just going to the whole improbable ceramics concept right there. How did a snail get an orbital trajectory?
Ed was viewing it more as a surface station, at which point the Ferrofuzz is in less trouble, but both are wonderful concepts. And I did very much want the end of today's stream to come off with, you know, a lot of fun things, a lot of positivity, because it's been a sad week in the Desir household. It's going to be sad with Virgil moving on tomorrow to exciting new pastures, and obviously losing Benny has been an absolute, the worst possible news you can get, but there's always good to be found in the world. No person whose ripples are yet felt is, you know, truly past, and they are always with us. Very happy to be building Benny into Shoal long term. Can't wait to see the stories you guys come up with. You're very welcome to submit me ideas for nonsense that Benny has gotten up to. This has been a very, very pleasant stream, and I'm very grateful for all of you. So I think I'm probably going to start winding it down here. We're not going to run over by a little bit and be cheeky this week. I don't think that's necessary. A spaced ferroflux is in orbit, and as we know, what comes around goes around. Oh no! As if the orbit of Shoal wasn't already dangerous enough with the insane amounts of radiation.
The thing's durable enough after eating through the hull of the station that it could impact a local spacecraft and keep on going unbothered.
At this rate, the Ferrofuzz is going to get its own name as well. Yeah, we're going to take these dogs out this evening.
Attempts to rescue the Ferrofuzz have all failed, as it has simply added to its already robust constitution with the spacecraft sent to recover.
All right, we are going to get out of here. I'm going to see if I can briefly throw up a thing. Some stuff's about to break on stream because I need to go and look at things, and OBS is going to have a fit, but it's fine. Do I have it on the desktop? No, I do not. Okay, we won't worry about it this week. What I will do is I will just do the poster, not the moving poster. Let me bring some things back up so stream starts to look the way it's supposed to again. That should fix it. Okay, let me do new source. It's going to be an image. It's going to be for Slamhala. Actually, no, I really want to show the moving one because it's got the cool sound behind it. Can I find it on my desktop? Media source. You can tell I was so prepared for everything I was intending to do today.
It happens. Scuff is part of the experience.
You know what would be the quickest way to do it is go and grab it from WBPLW chat and stick it straight on my desktop. Let's do that. Let's do that. Now, where is it? That's all Parallax's wonderful stuff that is yet to be shown, but will be coming up. There it is. That's the one I want. Download this. Desktop. Go. Then I can go. Desktop. Go. Open. Which it is. So, I will be seeing you guys at the end of the weekend. Thank you for starting your weekend with us and for being here for everything we discussed this week. We will be closing the weekend out. It's very loud. Let me turn that down. Bring that down. Let's put that down to about there-ish. My apologies for blowing out your eardrums, chat. Weekends end. We will be back with... let's get that to repeat. There we go. We will be back with WBPLW. We are on the road to Slamhala, which will be in a few weeks' time. I look forward to seeing you guys there. And... has it gone up loud again? I did turn it down. Okay, good. Good. I will see you guys on Sunday. Have a wonderful weekend. Cause some shenanigans. Go and commit a Benny somewhere. And I will see you guys Sunday.